Okay, no time for an intro, let's talk really fast, and if you can't keep up, well, suck it. So anyways, throughout the zombie storyline, all the way from World at War, all the way to Black Ops 2, we've been playing as a story, we've been carrying out a story, but it's completely pointless. It is completely pointless to the overall storyline. We can essentially erase that from our memory. However, there is lots of teasers left within those maps from World at War to Black Ops 2, which will pertain and give hints to the future of the zombie storyline. There's lots of things that have given teasers throughout these maps, and of course, there are a lot of mysteries and a lot of things that are yet to be solved. But essentially, the storyline we have been playing through has been completely irrelevant. However, the events we've been playing through have been unfolding in different parallel universes, and not only have they been unfolding in different parallel universes, but things and outcomes have been happening differently in every possible outcome. So, for example, Moon was essentially supposed to be Paris. In one other parallel universes, it would have actually been Paris, but we just never got to unfold and play that essentially event. It sort of leaves open to the possibility that maybe in the future, if Chet were to expand on the idea of these parallel universes and maybe go back in time and give us some teasers to the past of the zombie storyline, that we could see a Paris map in the future and any other maps that they had planned to do that could have been alternative directions to the zombie storyline. Now, this whole idea of parallel universes in the zombie storyline is very confusing, and is a concept that is completely new to Black Ops 3, but it was something that a lot of people started coming up with at the end of the Origins ending cutscene. A lot of people presumed, and a lot of people had theories, that it was in fact some sort of parallel universes to the main zombie storyline, and that is in fact true. Origins is a parallel universe to the original zombie storyline that we have in fact been playing. However, the original zombie storyline that we have been playing from World at War 2 Black Ops 2 is not actually the original zombie storyline. That's because we've been weaving throughout different parallel universes throughout that storyline of which we've been playing, but we haven't realised it. We thought it's been one linear storyline, although it's not been a linear storyline because Treyarch have released these maps in an incorrect order. However, the linear storyline of which we've put together, we've managed to find some sort of linear pathway of which we've put together these maps in a correct order. That is in fact wrong, and that's because some of these maps have been from one universe, some of them have been from another universe. Essentially, we pieced together different pieces of a wrong puzzle. We've got pieces from one storyline that has unfolded, pieces from another storyline that has unfolded, pieces from another storyline that has unfolded in different parallel universes, and we connected them all together, and it just does not work. Now, what this means for the overall storyline, I'm not entirely sure, because essentially it is completely irrelevant, because we know that Richtofen's going from universe to universe to universe, crossing each universe off, and he's rewriting time, essentially. Now, we know this because essentially he's been to the Giants and he's been to Shadows of Evil multiple times, and we hear quotes such as the fact that Richtofen says, "You must be one of those stupid Dempseys," because essentially he's been to multiple different parallel universes of the Giant. In each parallel universe, the other three characters which we have been playing as on the Giant and Origins, they've been slightly different. Their personalities, their attitudes, even their past and history, they have occurred slightly differently, although they are essentially the same person. But this can all have major effects to the overall storyline. However, the Richtofen that we've been playing as on Origins and the Giant is the same Richtofen from the original zombie storyline that we've been playing as. However, he's just the younger version. However, the other three characters are not the ones we've been playing as. In fact, it doesn't matter who they are, because he's been to the Giant multiple different times. In fact, the events that have unfolded on the Giant have happened differently on multiple occasions. Obviously, there is the Easter egg on the Giant to open the beacon for Maxis, and we hear a radio quote to be precise, on the Giant about the fact that Maxis is going to blow up the Giant research facility. Now, in some of these parallel universes, Richtofen has in fact succeeded, and he's managed to light the beacon for Maxis. However, in other parallel universes, he has in fact failed. So essentially, we're going to be having these split timelines carrying on in parallel universes, and we've got multiple storylines that have occurred due to Richtofen's undoings. Now, his aim is to essentially cross off these universes and get rid of them, essentially to make his own world better. However, by doing this, he's not making anything better, because he's just spoiling all of these other universes and causes them to go into havoc. And this will probably be one of the major things that leads to their downfall in the future. He's doing too much, he's thinking too much, he's thinking he's too powerful, and it's all just going to lead to his downfall. So in some parallel universes, he has actually managed to succeed and managed to get the summoning key from Shadows of Evil. However, in other parallel universes, he has in fact failed, and he's not managed to get the summoning key from Shadows of Evil. Now, one may ask that that's the fact that there's only one summoning key on Shadows of Evil. That is in fact wrong and is a completely stupid theory. We hear the Shadow Man actually say on Shadows of Evil that there is one summoning key in this entire universe, and all of you, for some reason, have assumed that means there's only one summoning key in each parallel universe, but he doesn't specifically say that. From this, we can concur that there is in fact multiple summoning keys, one in each parallel universe. Now, does this mean that he's trying to get multiple summoning keys from each parallel universe? Maybe, I'm not sure. Now, that's why I was thinking that maybe he's failed to get this summoning key in some parallel universes from Shadows of Evil, and in some he's not. But what this can also mean is that the summoning key might not be on Shadows of Evil in other parallel universes. So there'll be multiple parallel universes where it is in Shadows of Evil, but multiple where it's in completely other different locations due to slightly different events that have happened in time, leading to completely different outcomes. Maybe he's trying to get multiple summoning keys, I'm not entirely sure, or maybe he only needs the one. Now, there is in fact the loading screen on Shangri-La, we do in fact know that there is more than one summoning key, as it does in fact show two on the loading screen, which I'll be explaining in detail in a future video. Now, leading back to the idea of the Origins ending cutscene, we can actually see that that is a completely different universe to the one we've been playing as, but because we hear Samantha and Eddie, and they do in fact have an American accent. However, they are in fact German, so why do they have an American accent? That's because it's again another completely different parallel universe to the one that we've in fact been playing as. I'm not sure why this is or why it's so different to the other universes of which we've been playing as, but there will be a huge significant factor to why this is in fact the case. And I think the reason why it's so different is because, as I was saying, it's essentially in each parallel universe, every single outcome that could happen. However, all of the other universes that we have been in previously, but we just haven't actually noticed it, they've only been slightly different. But this is one of the anomalies, and this is one of the very different universes. Now, it leads open to the question of Shadows of Evil and also Mob of the Dead. We know, again, these are, two other parallel universes, but they don't seem to relate at all to the main storyline, because these parallel universes are completely set in completely different dimensions of their own parallel universes, so they're like pockets in time. There's pockets taken away from their own universe, so they're a parallel universe, which doesn't even make any sense. What this means is that the effects in Shadows of Evil and also Mob of the Dead doesn't really affect the overall universe that they're actually in. So what this means is that the only way that it can affect other universes is by essentially one person going into this pocket in time and then jumping out of it and changing the events that have happened in that pocket in time or out of that pocket in time, and that's the only way it's going to affect the overall zombie storyline. One example of this can actually be when Richtofen goes through the Rift portal and he ends up stealing the summoning key. That's exactly what is happening here. He's jumping through the portal in time. Essentially, he's not affecting the overall storyline of that parallel universe, but he's essentially affecting that little pocket in time. Now, again, this can also be seen on Mob of the Dead, because we know, well, we don't really know, but we know and we can presume that Nikolai does in fact know the Weasel, or in fact the other way around. Now, we don't know how exactly they've met, or whether it's just some sort of transference due to the different parallel universes. Somehow their minds and memories are transferring together, and they're getting memories and thoughts of other people in other universes. That is one theory that could explain this, or they may have in fact met in the past, which is one of those explained mysteries that we just don't know what it is as of yet. Now, we can also presume that Richtofen has in fact jumped in the pocket of time that is in fact Mob of the Dead and is essentially Purgatory. Now, essentially, that's a reoccurring pocket in time. The events of Mob of the Dead are a reoccurring cycle, and they will continue to last forever until the cycle is broken or the cycle is complete. If it's obviously complete, it will just completely reoccurring, but if it is in fact broken, then we really don't know what goes on from here on out. We don't know what happens when the cycle is broken, and that's why I do think Mob of the Dead is going to play one of the huge factors in the future of the zombie storyline, the future of Black Ops 3 Zombies DLC. I definitely think this isn't the last we've seen of the Weasel, and I also don't think it's the last we've seen of some of the Shadows of Evil characters, as the key quote for Black Ops 3 is only the cursed survive, and we know that the Mob of the Dead characters and also the Shadows of Evil characters are cursed, and therefore they can't die, as that would be breaking that rule entirely. And why would Shrek lead us with false hope and give us a completely false statement? It wouldn't make any sense. So anyways, we can assume that Richtofen, as I was saying, has in fact gone to Mob of the Dead in the past. We don't know how exactly he's got there, but he's managed to get there somehow, and he's managed to get the blood vials. Now again, this is just a theory, none of this is proven, but we can assume that it's from Mob of the Dead due to the numbers actually coinciding with the prison cells. Why he's essentially gotten this, we don't exactly know, but something to do with the summoning key, and he's gathering all of these different things, as I was saying, to essentially improve his own world whilst ruining the effects of others. This is all going to backfall and is all just going to lead to a massive disaster in the future, as we know Primus will fail. Now also on Mob of the Dead and Shadows of Evil, we know that their worlds are sort of coinciding with each other, and I've explained this in the past. Both maps are in fact Purgatory, and I did mention this in a previous video and you all said I was stupid, but this is confirmed. I don't understand why you don't understand the meaning of confirmed. No matter what evidence you have against this, this is a confirmed fact and was actually stated in an interview. It's 100% confirmed, and you really can't argue against that. And as I was stating earlier, and I'll be explaining this in depth in a previous video, people who believe in Purgatory believe that each different universe of Purgatory, well, each different person that goes into Purgatory essentially goes into a different dimension of Purgatory, and that's because everyone who goes into Purgatory, it's suited to their own fears, their own doubts, it's suited to their, their own experience. So one set of characters could go into Purgatory, it could look like Mob of the Dead, another set of characters could go into Purgatory and it could look like Shadows of Evil to them, but essentially there are in fact the same place. And what that means is that there is a lot more versions of Mob of the Dead and Shadows of Evil that we have yet to discover, and again the multiple parallel universes of this little pocket in time. Whether any of those will have any effect on the overall zombie storyline, or whether we'll in fact even mention them or notice them or get any relevance to them in the future is probably unlikely. I doubt they will have any significance, but it's just there out as a fact that maybe that will in fact be the case. Now, as I was saying, because they're different, because Mob of the Dead and Shadows of Evil are both Purgatory, essentially their different timelines are crossing into each other. We see the Mob of the Dead plane fly over Shadows of Evil, when in fact it's not flying over Shadows of Evil, because it's essentially flying over the Mob of the Dead, which is in fact Shadows of Evil. As I was saying, they are exactly the same place. They're just two different outlooks and two different versions and two different perspectives of the exact same place. It's somewhat like, the Beast mode is in fact just a different perspective of the afterlife. I mean, it really is that simple. There's a lot of other references on the map. We've got Sal de Luca's laundry list. A lot of the actual shops are named off of the Mob of the Dead characters. There's lots of posters that are on Mob of the Dead that are also on Shadows of Evil, and there's lots of cinemas and things like that that are named off of the Mob of the Dead things. And that's because, as I was saying, they are exactly the same place. However, the reason for the actual shops being named after Mob of the Dead characters is because essentially the Mob of the Dead characters have in fact been to Shadows of Evil, and prior to them being put in Purgatory, they will have in fact met the Shadows of Evil characters, and as we hear quotes from the Shadows of Evil characters mentioning the Mob of the Dead characters, and they do in fact know each other and were most likely partners in crime, which led to the fact of how they actually ended up in Purgatory in the first place. Although we do in fact know their overall storyline of what put them in Purgatory, they've most likely committed a lot more crimes that we don't entirely know about, which did involve the Mob of the Dead characters. From this we can deduce that whatever happens in Mob of the Dead happens in Shadows of Evil as well, and this is one interesting theory. So if Mob of the Dead and Shadows of Evil are essentially the same place, when Richtofen does in fact go to Shadows of Evil to steal the summoning key, as I was saying, what if in Mob of the Dead's perspective, when he's stealing the summoning key, to their perspective it looks like he's getting the blood vials. However, he's still getting the summoning key, but he's getting both at exactly the same time. Now this is where things get really confusing. Now this means that he may have even more artifacts that are essentially the same thing, but the different perspectives or the exact same thing in different parallel universes. That means he's meeting different people from Mob of the Dead and also Shadows of Evil and any other parallel universes of this Purgatory purgatory realm that we just don't know about yet. That means he must have multiple other different versions of this exact same artifact that could have completely different relevances. And what if he needs one from each of these different purgatory realms, essentially, to do this thing that he needs all these artifacts and objects for this grand purpose, which we just don't know whether it's for the greater good or for the greater evil as of yet. We don't entirely know what he's trying to do, but whatever that is, I would presume that all of these things are relating back to purgatory and stuff like that. Now, one explained thing is why on Mob of the Dead, the zombie eyes are in fact red, symbolizing that some sort of devil or being or, you know, evil, the force is in fact controlling the zombies, but they're in fact yellow on Shadows of Evil, which means that Samantha is controlling the zombies. It would make more sense for them to be green, because we know that some sort of Cthulhu being is in fact, you know, in power on that map, and or it could be the Shadow Man who was controlling them. That would make a lot more sense, but for some reason that isn't in fact the case. Once again, this is one of those other unsolved zombie mysteries that we will probably never know, and it probably doesn't really mean much either, but it's just something to bear in mind. Now, the whole premise of Mob of the Dead is all to do with evil, it's all to do with the devil, it's all to do with that sort of stuff, and the whole premise on Shadows of Evil is all to do with Cthulhu, it's all to do with the Shadow Man, it's all to do with the Cthulhu mythos and all that yada yada yada. But to be quite honest, it doesn't matter what the theme is, it's just to give the map a feeling, a unique feeling, but it doesn't really matter much to the overall zombie storyline. However, a lot of people thinking we'll be seeing a zombies map in the future, which is set in Lemuria, and it would make a lot more sense for the Cthulhu mythos to return in that map, and maybe we will see the rise of Cthulhu himself, and that could be a very well good DLC for map, and it could be a grand showdown of where the zombie storyline is in fact heading. Now, moving on to this whole idea of the fact that we've been playing through multiple different parallel universes, but we never really knew it. Well, if we in fact see under Eisendrache, we see all of these different rockets, and one may assume that again this is another sort of parallel universe to the essentially the events that we have in fact been unfolding throughout the original zombie storyline. However, Eisendrache is in fact a completely separate parallel universe to the Giant, the one which we've in fact been playing. But that's not to say that Richtofen hasn't in fact been to the Giant in that same parallel universe. In fact, he will be the same Richtofen, but the other characters, the other three characters, Richtofen, Takeo, and also Nikolai, they are not the same characters that we've been playing as on the Giant. They will be ones from a different universe, but Richtofen will in fact be the same. Now, we don't know what effect this will have on the storyline. We will probably notice slight different tones to the ones we've seen with the characters on the Giant, and Richtofen will probably have a lot of quotes mentioning the other characters and stuff like that. Now, for some weird reason on the Giant, we hear quotes from all of the characters, such as the one when they pack a punch and they talk about the fact that the Pack-a-Punch has been on the moon, Brazil, etc, etc, but this never really makes any sense because these characters have never actually been to the moon before, and we probably haven't even been to Brazil. Does this mean a future Brazil map? I'm not sure, but that's what a lot of people are thinking. Does this mean a future Moon remake? Most likely as well, because the Pack-a-Punch was never on the moon, obviously, and it was in fact in Area 51. Now, this is really strange, because the fact of the matter is that I doubt they've been on Moon at this point. Now, what this means is that somehow, and I don't get why, but all of these different parallel universes, they're coinciding with each other, merging with each other. There's no real explanation for why this entirely is, but it's not just objects and items that are merging together, but the actual character's mind seems to be merging from the other characters' minds, and also their future minds and past minds, and future minds from other universes and past minds from other universes, and it doesn't really make any sense whatsoever. We've seen throughout the zombie storyline this thing called temporal displacement. In fact, it's not even called temporal displacement, that's just a name we gave to it, but it was in fact explained on Shadows of Evil pretty well from a quote from Nero. But anyways, the fact of the matter is the universes, they're merging together for some reason. There's little splits and gaps between the different universes, and for some reason we don't know why this is in fact the case, but it just is, and it's why we see things like future weapons on past zombies maps. It's things like that, and it's why we see war weapons or that are future weapons. It's why we see things such as the Pack-a-Punch on maps before the Pack-a-Punch was even invented. It's why we see things such as the Cerberus within Mob of the Dead, but the actual heads, they were never on Mob of the Dead. They were like ripping in, they were tearing in from another universe. A lot of people believe that the Mob of the Dead plane on the Giant is another example of this, but I don't think that is in fact the case, and I think this is again one of those another unsolved mysteries which we're going to find out in the future. And I do believe that the plane actually managed to get there and it wasn't just temporarily displaced, and I do in fact believe that the Weasel or some other person has flown that plane and he's somehow gotten there. Now, whether that was with the help of some sort of anomaly, some sort of weird event that has occurred, I'm not entirely sure. Now, Keynote to Toten is in fact another parallel universe. This is a gap, this is a split, and there's actually a really good video by Play the Game which sort of briefly talks about this, and I'll link it down in this video's description, as we know that they pretty much know all and see all. But anyways, all we need to really take out of that as the fact of the matter is that when the characters accidentally teleported to Keynote to Toten, they weren't in the same universe as they were originally in, and they somehow bridged the gap into another universe, which is a parallel universe to the original Keynote to Toten, where in fact the Nazis won the war, and explains why there's all the Nazi stuff like that. And we can presume that the map is set in around the 1969-ish. Now, as I said, a really good video by Play the Game if you want to actually see an explanation as to why that is the case, but it's irrelevant to actually know why it is. You just need to know it pretty much is. Now, that's pretty much all I really want to talk about. This probably has absolutely blown your mind, and I'm sorry that I had to talk really quickly, but I just wanted to experiment with something very different, and I wanted to talk quickly on purpose, and honestly by the end of this I feel like I'm going to faint, I'm not even going to lie. I don't even know how I managed to freaking talk this fast. I've probably made so many mistakes in my speech and English because this is not humanly possible to speak this fast, but essentially the storyline that we've been playing as from World at War 2, Black Ops 2, has been bridging the gaps constantly through different universes, and we've just never really known it. However, that zombie storyline that we've been playing doesn't really matter, as I said, because it's all been erased. But the fact of the matter is, I'm sure it'll tie somehow back into the storyline somehow, because the characters are somehow still trapped on the moon at the end of Black Ops 1. Now, whether they just died there, that could be an explanation, or whether somehow we will see them again in the future. Maybe they in fact go through the universe and go back in time somehow and they meet us in the future. Now, another theory that I was having is that obviously at the end of Black Ops 2 we see the Origins ending cutscene and we see the characters in another parallel universe, but in this parallel universe things have happened really differently because the characters are in fact toys. Now, I'm not sure whether this means that the actual storyline never happened there, but in fact in this parallel universe, instead of the storyline actually happening, it was in fact just a child's game. That would be a very good explanation actually, because as I said, every possible outcome can happen in every possible universe. So in one universe, instead of this storyline happening, it could have just been all a game, because it's that crazy. There's some extreme examples of how different the universe can actually be. Or there could in fact be some other crazy explanation as to why that is in fact the case. Now, also I was thinking, because Richtofen's going through all of these parallel universes, but he is in fact the younger version of the Richtofen that we've been playing in the original zombie storyline, but the other characters are not. Does this mean that other Richtofens from other parallel universes are doing the exact same thing as him, and they're trying to make the world essentially a better place, and his universe a better place, by doing all these different things in all these different universes? As we know, there was a 2-year gap from the events of Origins to the Giant, and during that time, as I was saying, he's been going through all these different parallel universes, doing different things which we don't exactly know what exactly it is. Does this mean there's other Richtofens doing the exact same thing, and in the future they may in fact bump into each other whilst going through all these different parallel universes, and this would lead to utter havoc, as we've seen by Richtofen bumping into Richtofen on the Giant? That is in fact the case, and as we were saying earlier, because he's been to the Giant multiple times, Richtofen's killed himself multiple times on the Giant over and over again, as well as the other characters in fact meeting each other multiple times just due to the fact of the encounter. But anyways, this is going to conclude today's video. This has made absolutely no sense, so anyways, that's good. Bye.